Welcome to the making of the I Remember You project. I've been doing a number of collaborations with various artists virtually on a duet over a rhythm track that I created, and thought it was time that I show a little bit of how I work behind the scenes to make it happen, in case it helps the viewer learn more about how to use an audio mixing program such as Audacity, or a video editing program such as Adobe Premiere Pro. Audacity is one that I recommend quite a bit because it is free and it works on a variety of platforms, Mac, PC, etc. So I think it is a great platform from which to experiment, even if you know absolutely nothing about audio mixing. So what you're looking at now is a screen of Audacity which has several tracks on it. This track, highlighted now, is the I Remember You rhythm section, which you'll hear in a moment. Then the second track is yours truly playing cup-muted trombone. And the third track is the guest artist. Now, this screen that you're looking at is saved. It's a saved template from a previous iteration of the project. In other words, I have already done several projects where I have blended the rhythm section and me with a guest. The easiest way for me to work on the next project with the next guest is to import the template again and replace this guest with a new guest and start from there. I don't have to re-import this or balance it, or re-import this and balance it. My rhythm section is already balanced with me, so my goal is to get the new artist in balance and in place and sync. So let's listen for a moment with the rhythm section. If I listen to just the rhythm section, you can hear a bass, cymbals, starting just with that originally. Later we add some piano. If I go over here, brush drums. So this happens to be a MIDI bass and MIDI drums that I created mostly in Finale because it's just convenient for me, and exported it into MP3 form. I comped piano live over that at one point because I enjoyed doing that response live. There are some stop times you can see in the framework of this. I'll blow it up. Then the rhythm section starts back up. This ability to enlarge and shrink the audio waves representation on the screen comes in very handy for editing later. But right now we're looking at the entire solo track. Later, already you can hear the sticks are present. Later the dynamic picks up a little bit. Over here you can see the waveforms getting bigger for the ending. So that's the 6-minute track. Now if I go over to this track and solo it, this happens to be me. I didn't label it. Probably be a great thing to do. Let's go in and label it. Tony. There I am. So this is me, and the first thing that you'll hear on this solo track is actually a hand clap that I keep handy because it might be worthwhile to help synchronize the guest artist with me. And sometimes you do a series of hand claps. Let's listen here. So I can use that visually and orally. And then I lay out a while, and eventually I come in on the cup-muted trombone. Right, so that is set already. I already have a balance and a mix that works at various parts of the chart with the rhythm section. So even if I don't have a guest artist, these 2/3 of the mix are set. I don't have to change anything. Now, I did originally have to do work that you haven't seen. You know, I had to balance the volume of this rhythm section track up here. I had to balance the volume of mine, maybe do a little tone quality work to make sure things were working out well. But those two are now pretty well set. And then I have the third track, was a guest artist. The previous track had a saxophonist here who played the melody up at the top of the chart while I played counter melody, and then I played a little more melody, and then this person played, and then this person, you know, we go back and forth, we play together, etc. And this stuff all balances out pretty well. So if I go ahead and sample all 3 tracks here, for instance. My goal when I have all 3 tracks is to have enough clarity that if I wanted to transcribe, frankly, either the trombone track or the guest track, a listener would be able to transcribe it pretty clearly because they could hear it very well. Now you have to realize that these tracks were performed entirely separately. So I never heard the saxophonist in this case creating the saxophone track until the saxophonist delivered that track, Tom Christensen. So there will be imbalances that perfectly fine musicians will create that they would probably not create in a live studio session or recording session or a live concert if the electronics were balanced well, because I don't know what the other person's playing. So I have to go back in and perhaps artificially create an appropriate balance where I stay out of the way of the other person's lead line a little better, or that person stays out of the way of my lead line a little more. So those are decisions that I have to make artistically that I wouldn't have to make as much of that decision if it was a live duet. But now I have to create the artifice of live interaction, which means pretending that I could hear the other player when I recorded it. So now my goal is to import a new file. So this will give you a chance to see how I would have imported the first, second, and third files. I'm going to import a new artist file, that of trombonist Philip Jones, and get an idea of where it might fall in with Tom Christensen's and with mine, and then eventually delete Tom Christensen's and continue with Philip Jones on this work. So I'm going to open up the open file and say I want to import audio. I'm going to import Philip Jones's track. So let's find it. Let's go over to the I Remember You recital track, and this is where I keep all of the videos. One of the things that's important to do is to consistently save all your files in the same location you wish to refer to them later. If I take out some of these files or delete them and open up my Audacity track in another day, it won't know where to find the files, and I might lose a lot of work. But I have a lot of things under this I Remember You track. These AUP files are Audacity, I'm guessing, processing or program files, AUP files. They take up very little memory, so I keep them forever. That's 43 kilobytes for a project. But they organize where all the audio is kept for the project. So when I save that, I am keeping all the locations straight. However, I have various separate files that go into that. So in this case, for instance, with Philip Jones, I have here this is his raw video that he's got that I'm going to need to extract the audio for to do this work. If I actually decide I want to import this, now I'm importing a movie file into this, but I'm really working only with audio in this regard. I could decide to do the audio editing inside my video editing software and do it all at once. But I have found that for me, it really works to separate the matter, work on audio with audio, and then sync it up with the video later, rather than work in the massive template that occurs in a video program and find my way through the editing of the audio. So it's nicely imported, just the audio, from that video file. That's pretty cool. I actually don't remember the last time I've edited one of these projects, but it's nice to know that you can do that without even having to say open up QuickTime to strip the audio out of it. As you can see, the original MP4 video is still intact. It's 1.25 gigs, but the audio file is not 1.25 gigs. It's relatively small. Okay, so we see a big hand clap here. Now I can resize these windows any way I like, which is kind of cool. And if I go up here, I can even ask to view them all in such a way that I can see everything in one window within reason, and this is working out pretty well. So this says IRY P. Jones, so that's Philip Jones, great. Here's his hand clap, which is clearly nowhere lined up near my hand clap. So one of my first things might be to do that. But first, let's just solo his track for a second and listen to it. So I'll first get his clap. Yep, there it is. And here's his trombone. Cool. It's a nice sound. He's got a bit of hiss back there because everybody records with what they got. He might have been recording with his phone. We can take some of that hiss out. And the sound is not as robust as Philip's terrific sound, I can say, having played next to him and with him in a variety of ensembles. He has a great round sound, so I may have to restore some of that sound that the recording device that he used did not capture. I may have to EQ that a little bit. Let's see about syncing this up a little bit, just for the heck of it. Now, I think at this point, I'm not going to really need Thomas's track anymore, Tom Christensen's track anymore, because everybody phrases everything a bit differently. So I'm going to say so long to Thomas at this point, and in the tracks, I'm going to say remove the track, and now we have just these three, so that's fine. And if I ask them to fit those vertically, then I get a little bit of bigger picture of everybody. And now I can save this AUP file. I have already taken the IRY, it says up at the top, I Remember You, MIDI, rhythm section, García, used to say Christensen, dry, meaning there's no reverb, clap, meaning the clap is in version 1. I took the Christensen one and resaved it already as Jones. So now it's already retitled, so it won't erase the work I've done with Mr. Christensen if I want to come back to it at any point. But now if I save it, I can either go up here or I can click Command S. If I save the project, it will save it so quickly that you can't even recognize that it's been saved, but it's been saved. So now what I'd like to do is line up these claps for starters, just for the heck of it. So let me blow this up a little bit and say, hey, what if I want to try to line this one up with that one? Now there's different ways of doing it, but let me get, see, when you line it up, you can see what you thought was accurate is not so accurate. At smaller view, you think, oh, I nailed it. But if you close in, you can see, as big as possible, even, you can see like, oh, well, nah, that's not at all accurate. So now I've got a pretty good start to the clap. So that's fine. Let me take out everything else leading up to it. So now I need to move that clap over a bit. So this tool here allows me to time shift. How cool is that? I'm a Star Trek fan. I've always wanted to time shift. So that's great. So now I can zoom in and see like, well, yeah, that's not quite right. You know, maybe move that over there and maybe zoom in a little more and move over here because it moves out of view. See if you can find it. And like, okay, there it is. And moving it over here. And like, okay, maybe I move it over here a little bit. Make that happen. And maybe I make it even bigger and look for it. Wow, it's getting so big it's hard to keep. But that looks pretty good, doesn't it? So I'm going to go back out of my time shifting tool so I don't inadvertently shift time. Now, if I listen to, if I solo these two tracks, I should hear a clap pretty solidly on both. Yep. Now you could hear how when he did his clap, maybe his ring hit the horn, or maybe the slide lock rattled a little bit. We can take care of those kinds of sounds later. I'll probably wipe out all of that, but I'm keeping it for a moment for reasons you will find out. But watch. See how that little sound that's not needed is right there. Yeah, we'll take care of that. Now, we don't know for sure. I have a faint memory that my clap wasn't as ideal as I would like it to be. But now we should be able to go ahead and listen to these, even though the balance isn't right. I can see that obviously Philip Jones is a lot louder than others. But let's see how this sounds for a second. Pretty nice. I'm about to enter on the cut mute over here. You can hear how the balance is not correct. So obviously we need to change the balance, but actually that sync worked out really well. So I'm going to save that file That works out nicely. So we have that. Well, of course, we don't want the clap on the final track. What I normally do when I render the mix is I delete this area here, and then the clap isn't there. But then I don't save it, delete it. I often keep at least my clap in place as a reference point, because you can see the amount of time it saved me. If there had not been one or two claps here, or someone clearly counting off in a very crisp manner, I might have spent 15 minutes trying to line up Philip's track to the original, but now it seems like it's lined up pretty well.